Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth.
Today, Louisiana became the first state in the country to require the Ten Commandments be on display in every public school classroom, from kindergarten to state-funded universities, under a bill signed by Republican Governor Jeff Landry.
And I don't know which one they're going to put up. There's 10 different versions of the Ten Commandments, and our schools are so underfunded that I'm not sure half the kids even know how to read them. But it's one of the dumbest waste of times I've ever seen in my life.
The schools in Louisiana traditionally have ranked very low in the rankings of schools in America. It's gone up, I think. Pre-K through 12 has gone up a little bit in recent years, but not by much.
Governor Edwards, John Bell did a great job. I mean, he got us, off the bottom, but Governor Landry is intent on putting us back on the bottom, it seems like.
It's very easy to tell whenever you have a politician or an entire political party who clearly has no new ideas, so they just keep recycling the same old stuff. Ron DeSantis decided to get himself some quickie headlines trying to be some half-brained culture warrior. That crashed and burned. But because everybody else in the GOP doesn't have any ideas of their own either, they looked and said, maybe we can go ahead and jump on that train. It didn't work for him, but maybe, just maybe, it might work for us. The newest individual who wants to be the star of the culture wars is Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry. This guy talks like he came off the set of Green Acres, and he looks like he walked off the set of Deliverance. If you were to look up Cletus in the dictionary, you would see this buck-toothed, cross-eyed scumbag looking right at you. Now, just for a summary, Louisiana's legislature and governorship are both controlled by the GOP. In fact, they actually have a supermajority down there in that state legislature, and as a result, they're doing the kind of stupid message legislation that DeSantis and the Florida GOP would regularly do. In this case, they decided to pass a law that says the Ten Commandments have to be displayed in every public school and in every state-funded university. This, of course, is weaponizing the fact that tax dollars go to these places in order to get policies that are actually against taxpayer interest. You don't decide to have something that's going to be hyper-specialized if everybody in the society is required to pay for it. And you can tell that the white right's been sitting around sniffing their own farts, because the talking point for this is basically that it's a historical document. The Ten Commandments is a historical document. Now, even for the best of theologians, they talk about that in terms of basically being nothing more than religiously based folklore. You can't exactly find the grave of Moses. And if it wasn't for these biblical stories, you wouldn't really have anything that says a guy named Moses was running around anyway. But that's not the point, of course. The point is this is supposed to be the enshrinement of what is clearly nothing more than white Christian identity dogma. But of course, as with all of this agitprop that they keep using the schools as the entry point for, they keep falsely claiming we're doing this for the kids. It's all about the kids. It's meant to benefit the kids. You don't want to do anything that would disadvantage the kids, mind you. Yeah, I guess they figured that because Christopher Rufo's asinine talking points about white children being offended wouldn't work here, they weren't able to use that, so they're just saying kids in general. Give me a break. Louisiana has one of the lowest literacy rates in America. They also have one of the lowest high school graduation rates in America. They also have some of the lowest entrepreneurial rates in America. These people need to be putting the ABCs and multiplication tables on their school walls, not the Ten Commandments. But the white right's entire policies these days is psychological masturbation. Or as Christopher Rufo put it, we want to do whatever we think is going to drive the left nuts. Apparently, even if it damns the conservatives' own children. In the ultimate absurdity of the white right, the kids down there can't even read, but they're going to put the Ten Commandments on the wall anyway. And Democrats aren't doing anything about all this because they don't want to alienate any of those Biden Republicans, as Rahm Emanuel put it, who they're hoping to appeal to. White moderates read casual racists and economic conservative voters who they hope they can appeal to on issues like abortion. The Democrats are trying to walk a tightrope with these groups, and that's why they remain quiet on stuff like this. Yeah, you'll have the usual pundit class on television, but that's about it. The Democrats are not really going to get out there and do a full court press. Now, with leadership like this across America, it's no wonder the U.S. is going down the toilet. Kids in Asian countries, they don't have this kind of stuff being pushed at them. If you were to go to China or India or South Korea, you wouldn't find anyone talking about putting religious stuff on the walls. In China, they don't put any of Chairman Mao's Little Red Book stuff on the walls. In India, they don't have any Hindu scriptures on the walls. And in South Korea, the home of Samsung Electronics, do you see them taking any sort of religious text from their religions and putting it on the school walls? Of course not. These countries decided that they weren't going to put religion on the walls, they were going to put reading, writing, and arithmetic on the walls. And that's the reason why you got so many of these Asians who are overrepresented when it comes to Silicon Valley. Even if you are one of those people who believes that these kids need more religion in their lives, tell me something. What do the 10 Commandments do to make American children competitive in the 21st century? This is a portrait of the utter decay that white supremacy represents. When you've had it all your own way for so long, you become oblivious to the fact that the world has changed, and you've failed to change along with it. I'm talking not just about the Republicans, but also the Democrats as well. Now, can you believe that the Democrats actually lost the governor's mansion in Louisiana to this clown? Worse yet, they allowed the Louisiana legislature to be completely and thoroughly taken over by these jokers for many, many years. Not because Democrats can't be competitive, but because, as I told you, the Democratic Party is a DC-based social club. They largely don't care about state races, and as far as they're concerned, they like to use idiots like this as a political counter-lever in order to coerce black people to vote for nothing. But it's not as if the Democrats' little strategy hasn't been biting them in the butt regardless. James Carville, the Cajun Skeletor, Louisiana is his home state, and he's having his state eaten alive by the white right. Now, this man is supposed to be some sort of legendary political strategist, some sort of legendary political guru, because he worked on the Clinton campaign 30 years ago. And he's been trying to ride on the coattails of that little accomplishment ever since, but he's been dead wrong and come in dead last ever since the 90s. How is this guy, one of the allegedly most intelligent Democratic strategists of all time, supposed to be taken seriously when his own state has become a political colony of the GOP? But he's not alone in his failure. Donna Brazile, another political fossil from the 90s, is also from Louisiana, New Orleans to be exact, and she was also a former head of the DNC. And this is what's happening in her home state. But she's not alone in her failure either. Cedric Richmond, one of Joe Biden's former advisors, was also a Louisiana politician, and he did absolutely nothing for black people. So you got two of the most famous, most influential Democratic strategists ever, and a former presidential advisor, and this is how effective they are in their own state. How am I supposed to believe that these guys are going to help black people when, one, they have no track record of helping us at all, and two, they can't even help themselves? They let the GOP dominate their state legislature, and after 8 years of a Democratic governor, they totally ignored the black vote, which resulted in this mouth-breathing, knuckle-dragging Cletus becoming governor. But it's the Democrats' own fault, because they've been doing it in other states as well. This is the game that they've been playing nationwide. For the clowns and shills out there who want us to vote for the Democrats because they're going to stop the Republicans from running roughshod over us, take a look, stupid. They can't even stop the GOP from running roughshod over themselves. You have the Cajun Skeletor and Aunt Jemima down there, and the GOP's just straight ruling. Now, obviously, I don't like having these neo-Klansmen in office, and it's more than just their rhetoric. But the truth of the matter is, when they are in office, instead of black people suffering alone, we have others who also have to get brought in for some punishment too, which is what these other groups want to avoid. See, they're all fine with suffering. They're all fine with the GOP putting legislation on the books meant to target people, just so long as it's only black people. That's the game that they play. Long as black people are the only ones in the crosshairs, it's all good. So we're going to let the inbreds on the white right spread the suffering around. That's what happened during the Trump years. And everybody didn't like it because they got to see what it was like to be us for a change. Jeff Landry wants to be the next Ron DeSantis, and if by that he thinks that he's going to get lots of attention for himself with these stupid stunts, he will. But if he thinks that this is going to result in him being a presidential contender, just like DeSantis, he won't. Culture wars are only viable at the state level, and even then, only in states where you control the state legislature and the governorship at the same time. Louisiana Republicans couldn't pull any stupid stunts like this before because for 8 years there was a Democrat in office. But John Bel Edwards did nothing to incentivize black voters anywhere in the Bayou State. So in the last gubernatorial race, black Louisiana voters stayed home. And even now, with all this going on, with Republicans in other states being emboldened by the Louisiana governor's foolishness, Democrats are still not coming to black voters to make any sort of deal or to make any sort of pledges for our tangibles. Ignoring black voters is an article of faith for Democrats. That's probably what's on the walls of the Democrats' own offices. They're not at war with the GOP. They see themselves as being at war with us. To them, trash like DeSantis and Jeff Landry serve a very important purpose. They're used in order to present someone so corrupt and odious and ridiculously racist that Democrats think all they have to do is point to the DeSantises and the Landrys, all of these little racist culture warriors, and say, "You black people can't go making any demands in this election. It's too dangerous. Just go to the polls and vote. Why, think of what these ethno-fascists will do if they get into office. You just have to vote like we tell you to do and take one for the team and don't demand anything." By doing this, Democrats figure they can coerce black voters into voting time and again and get absolutely nothing in return. And for a long time, it's worked. But it seems now at least some black folks are finally getting tired of walking in circles. And this has been the result. The GOP didn't take over Louisiana any more than they took over those other poor states. The Democrats simply surrendered it. They expect people to vote just because, and that doesn't work. Now that hillbilly in charge of Louisiana, he's already said, "I hope they sue us." And of course, predictably, the ACLU and others have been filing a slew of lawsuits in regards to this case. But it's excruciatingly obvious what the Republicans' political strategy here is. Right now, there's a Supreme Court with the majority of it being Federalist Society operatives, people who have taken a pledge to ignore the Constitution, to ignore the law, and just simply hand down rulings based on their own political prejudices. And if these lawsuits do inevitably find themselves in front of this Supreme Court, you're going to have a lot of people in the white media and the white left shocked that these Federalist Society flunkies suddenly decide that after 100+ years of ruling after ruling saying separation of church and state, well, this Supreme Court suddenly realized, wait, the founders of the United States wanted a theocracy after all. That is a very real possibility that could come out of this case. Clarence Thomas already tipped his hand the fact that these Federalist Society Supreme Court justices have a little agenda that they're working their way through. They want to, quote unquote, as he put it, revisit a number of pre-existing Supreme Court cases. This is about trying to reshape the country by fiat. This is the price that the white left has chosen to pay in order to defy our demands. Their objective is to maintain the racial status quo and make sure that black people never bring morality or sanity to the social order in this country. So letting the Republicans be in charge is a very important way that white supremacy maintains power. Because the white left and the white right actually work hand in hand against us. They whipsaw us against whichever loudmouth Republican is out there saying some stupid racist stuff this week. And then instead of black people digging in their heels and saying, well, if you want this guy removed, you got to sit down and break bread with us. Let's make a deal. Instead, Negroes' knees start knocking. They start getting scared and go, it's too dangerous now. And they get right back on that political treadmill to nowhere, which changes nothing. We've spent decades, far too long, playing the game by their rules. Now it's time to make the bastards play by ours. And if they truly believe that this is all about stopping the Republicans from ushering in some sort of fascist theocracy, then they're going to have to get serious about meeting black people's demands. Because the reality is, if they actually believe they're going to put an end to this quote-unquote Christian fascism without us, they're going to find out the hard way they don't have a prayer. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Frederica Moore, Deep Eye 904, Stephen Lyles, Craig Simmons, and Mark Singleton. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.